All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the Daily Dose with Sean Redden. As always, the show is produced by Nick D'Amelio, and he's going to be joining me in the conversation because we had a pretty fun show with a bunch of various topics planned for today. But now a huge wrench, huge curveball got thrown in today with the Eagles deciding to fire Doug Peterson. And then if you listen to Howie Roseman's press conference, I'm sorry, not Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie's press conference earlier today, what an absolute shit show. Jeffrey Lurie started off so promising in his press conference talking about how the team after 2017 made a bunch of short-sighted moves to try to capitalize on that Super Bowl window with the aging players that they had on the roster. They wanted to capitalize to try to compete for more Super Bowls in the near future. And now they had a different plan. Doug Peterson was looking to compete in 2021, which if that somebody's the head coach of my football team, I would want them to want to compete every single season. But Lurie said that he was looking to rebuild. So they went their separate ways. I've been calling for Doug Peterson's firing for damn near half a season now. The offense has been stale. Every year in the offseason, they lose a coordinator, they lose an offensive coach, and the offense looks worse the next year. Luckily, Wentz went on a tear with grocery baggers last season to get them into the playoffs. And then in 2018, obviously, Wentz gets hurt. They make it to the playoffs. Double doink sends them to the divisional round, and then they lose to the Saints. And then the biggest lie Eagles fans tell themselves is that they were an Alshon Jeffrey catch away from making it back to the NFC Championship game. That's just not the case. The offense did absolutely nothing for 3 quarters in that Saints game. Even if Alshon catches that ball and they get the first down, there's no guarantee, and I would actually probably bet against the fact that they put points on the board on that drive. That drop is not the reason why they didn't beat the Saints that year. It's because the offense didn't do shit for 3 quarters in that game. They came out 14-0 and then just did nothing the rest of the game. So you can't blame that on Alshon. But getting to Doug Peterson, starting out in 2017, obviously the team won the Super Bowl, but then they lose DeFilippo, they lose Frank Reich, and people can try to downplay all they want about the losses of Reich and DeFilippo. DeFilippo I don't even think has a job right now, and Frank Reich is obviously the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And Reich coached himself out of a ball game on Saturday. I don't know if you watched that game, Nick, but a lot of questionable decisions out of Frank Reich to lose that game for the Indianapolis Colts versus the Buffalo Bills. But nonetheless, you can't argue the fact that when they were both in this offensive room and coming up with a scheme and tailoring a game plan, that it looked a lot better than it did with them gone. Obviously, like I said, I'm not saying Frank Reich is a perfect coach, but the scheme went in 2017 was awesome. There was guys running wide open, but now you fast forward to this year where Doug Peterson, the smartest guy in the room, said he didn't need to hire an offensive coordinator. They were just going with a bunch of offensive consultants. First of all, you can't hire that many people on offensive staff. There's too many different voices in your quarterback's ear, in the offensive player's ear. You have to have your set guys that you go to in order to make an offense run. You can't have that many voices in somebody's ear and expect it to work. But if you watch the Eagles play this year on the offensive side, the defense is what it is. But Jim Schwartz was already out the building. But the offense, if you watch this offense all year, and then you watch a team like the Chiefs play, or a team like the Packers play, or Buffalo Bills, for example, it looked like you were watching two different sports because guys on these other teams are just running wide open, and whoever the quarterback is, Jalen Hurts or Carson Wentz, is throwing the ball into tight ass windows every time. Like, they don't scheme wide receivers open, and it's been a thing since Doug Peterson has had full control of this offense. They don't coach wide receivers up. People can say what they want about the Jalen Reagor pick, but the coaches did not put him in a position to succeed. And if you think Justin Jefferson was going to be in this offense and doing what he's doing in Minnesota, you're smoking crack, because there's no way he's putting up them numbers with this incompetent offense and these coordinators. Their offense is just super stale. And there's Jalen Reagor is elite with the ball in his hands. Up until the last couple weeks of the season, they never threw him a screen pass. They never gave him an end around. Never put him back there on punt returns. There's just zero creativity. It's a Goddard seam route. It's a curl on the outside. It's a dump off to Miles Sanders. There's just no create. Like you could sit there and call the Eagles' game plan out
I do it every
before
week.
the play even happens, and then when you get to the red zone, it's going to be a QB draw or an RPO. Like there's zero creativity in this offense, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to see a new face going to be running this Eagles team. I would have been okay with Doug staying as long as he hired a competent offensive coordinator outside of the team. But also, Doug, you can't tell me Doug Peterson didn't want to be fired.
Oh,
He
100%.
had to have wanted to be fired.
He ever since I feel like last year when he said Mike Groh was safe and then they fired Mike Groh the next day.
Yeah.
He knew he had no control. There's just absolute. He is the low man on the totem pole, and he has a GM and an owner, in my opinion, that overstepped their boundaries of their job and not let Doug do what he wants to do. Like I said, like you said, I'm happy for the change of scenery. Hopefully, we get a new coach in here who can use the players we have right. Like the Jalen Rager thing, inexcusable. The fact that Greg Ward was back there getting those little shuttle passes till week 11. That's Jalen Rieger's specialty, and you're not even using a punt returning.
Greg Ward is completely useless back there as a punt returner. First of all, he had the most fair catches inside the 10-yard line of any returner in the NFL, and he has zero threat to score or make a big play with it if he does have it in his hands. He doesn't have that wiggle. It makes zero sense to have Greg Ward back as your punt returner all year. But also, getting back to Peterson, I mean, the reason I say he wanted to be fired is because there's no way he went to this meeting with Jeffrey Lurie and thought him telling Lurie, I'm going to have Press Taylor, who was the quarterback coach for the worst passing offense in the NFL, the Eagles this year. Wentz was historically bad. Worst season of his career, hands down. But this is the first year Press Taylor has been his quarterback coach. And he actually got some play calling duties according to Peterson late in the season. I don't know if I buy that or not. But you can't go into a meeting with your owner trying to save your job and say, you know that guy who was the quarterback coach for the statistically worst quarterbacks in the NFL, because Jalen Hurts was electric with his legs, sucked passing the ball. He was like, his numbers were just as good as Wentz. If not, it actually projected to be worse than Wentz if you projected on a season-long basis. So don't come in here and say, oh, well, it didn't matter like Jalen Hurts. No. If you think Jalen Hurts got it done passing the ball, you're lying to yourself. Or you have no idea what you're looking at. But he was electric with his legs. And I honestly was like, all right, you know what? Jalen Hurts' ability to run might save Peterson's job. He's going to be like, hey, the offense is looking better. But then you saw the more we saw it, the more it looked like the same old thing that we've been looking at all year. So Doug Peterson's plan was to promote that guy who's the quarterback coach to the offensive coordinator spot. And then to top that off, the Corey Unlin, who was fired by the team years ago, was fired by the team as their secondary coach. They're going to bring him back and be the defensive coordinator. Makes zero, like, there's no way he was like, all right, you know what? This is definitely going to wow Lurie and he's going to bring me back. There's no way. He had to have been like, yo, I'm going to go in there and tell him I'm going to hire Press Taylor and Corey Unlin and I'm going to lose my job. That had to be his plan. There's no way he thought that was a good idea.
100%. I think he wanted to, even if he didn't want Press Taylor to actually be his offensive coordinator, he was going in there to make a point. Are you going to let me do what I want to do and give me one more shot? Or are you going to hire guys like Rick Scangrillo onto my coaching staff, even though I don't want him here? And when Jeffrey probably looked at him like, are you out of your mind? Absolutely no. We don't even want Press Taylor back or whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
And Corey Unlin just had one of the historically worst Detroit Lions defenses of all time. And he lost his job because Patricia lost his job. So
yeah,
it's if that's true and that's just not, Philly media doing Philly media stuff, that is absolutely horrific. That it's horrible. Like I would write in the first round pick next year if that's what we were going to do.
Absolutely. That's what I was just like, once they said that, I'm like, oh, Peterson wanted out. He wanted to be fired. There's no way he thought that was a good idea. But also, Peterson is fired. And people want to say, "Oh my God, he won us a Super Bowl. How can you do that to him? He won a Super Bowl 3 years ago." This team, it's not just one bad season. This is just the worst it's looked. This team has been on a downward spiral since 2017, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It's just gotten worse every single year. And also, that Super Bowl year was an anomaly. Now that Doug Peterson is fired by the Philadelphia Eagles, his career record is set. It's finalized as the head coach of the Eagles. He actually is going to finish his career as the Eagles head coach with a lower winning percentage than Chip Kelly. So if that doesn't tell you that that one Super Bowl year was an anomaly and the team actually is not very good at all with him being here, that's all you need to know. Chip Kelly has a higher winning percentage than Doug Peterson for their coaching careers as Eagles head coaches.
That's wow.
And like I said, I'm not like I will for if I ever see Doug out somewhere. I know he lives in Morristown currently. He might be moving now that he's not with the Eagles. But if I ever seen him out somewhere, I would 100% buy him a beer or buy him dinner or whatever. I'm super grateful for 2017. Same thing with Nick Foles, legend. I don't want him to be my quarterback. Doug Peterson, thank you for the Super Bowl. I don't want you to be my head coach anymore. But now that he's gone, we have to turn to guys who we think are possibilities to replace him. I have three guys that I would absolutely love. And one of these guys I hinted towards earlier. If you follow me on social media, I put out that there is a legit big name candidate who actually has links to the Eagles and is a real possibility. Might be kind of more of a dream to because the dysfunction right now in the Eagles is going to be hard to persuade him to leave his cushy job and come here and take that risk. But nonetheless, my top three coaching candidates. First of all, Eric Bieniemy, I think is a phenomenal coaching candidate with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's been one of the best offensive coordinators for the past couple seasons since he replaced Doug in Kansas City. But I do not want Eric Bieniemy. No. I'm not saying he's not going to be a good coach, but I am tired of Andy Reid's tree. I know it's been successful. Doug Peterson got him a Super Bowl, but Matt Nagy flamed out in Chicago, and I'm tired of the same. I want a fresh voice. I want a fresh philosophy on here. I don't want the West Coast um, Andy Reid type era. I'm over it. You got it with Doug. It worked out for 1 year. Cool. I get it. You went from Chip Kelly, who was the most radical head coach in the NFL, so you went back to Doug Peterson, who's Andy Reid basically, and it was a safe hire. But I
Mhm.
think now it's a time where the offense has been so stagnant the past few years. You have to get a fresh voice. And like I said, me not wanting Eric Bieniemy to be the Eagles head coach has nothing to do with his qualifications. I don't want another Andy Reid disciple. I want a fresh voice, a fresh scheme, and all that in here.
I think we can all agree with that.
And
It's time to move on from the Andy Reid.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'll give me different philosophies. I want, and I think Eric Bieniemy, if he goes to the Jets and they draft Fields, or if he goes to Houston and with Deshaun Watson, wherever he goes, I think he's going to be a good coach. I'm just tired of that overall thought process of Andy Reid type coaches. Also, now to the candidates who I actually want. Starting off with Brian Dabble, the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. I would love the fact that Dabble would come here and be the head coach, and maybe he would bring Ken Dorsey, who's the quarterback coach now for the Buffalo Bills. He's been around the league as a coach for a few years now. He's done a pretty good job. Dabble and Dorsey are both have their hands in on developing Josh Allen, who was considered not to be a good NFL quarterback when he's coming in. He had a cannon, strongest arm in the NFL, but his accuracy, his decision making was all questionable. He has turned into one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and Ken Dorsey and Brian Dabble are both responsible for that. So if you're looking for a quarterback who is either going to develop Jalen Hurts, who needs a ton of development from a passing standpoint with his decision making and traits and all that, he needs some development from a passing standpoint to be a dynamic player in the NFL because he's already electric with his legs, or you want coaches in here that are going to fix your franchise quarterback in Carson Wentz. You'd be hard pressed to find a better duo than Dabble in here as the head coach and Ken Dorsey here as the OC, but Ken Dorsey might just get promoted to take Dabble's shoes if Dabble does become the Eagles' hire.
Is Dorsey is that the U quarterback from the day back in the day?
Yeah, he won a couple natties with Miami back in the day, and then flamed out in the NFL as a player. But
Yeah.
he was never an excellent quarterback. Even when he was in college, he was just playing with freak athletes all around him.
I had no
But
idea he was a coach now.
but yeah, he's been around for a couple years now. I believe he was with the Panthers before he went to the Bills, and now he's their quarterback coach. I think he's been there a couple years now. So he's been there since Josh Allen has been there. Second candidate is, I posted earlier, my man crush, Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers. He was the offensive coordinator and passing game coordinator for LSU last year when they won the national championship. He's hugely responsible for the development of Joe Burrow. I know people were like, oh, well, Burrow was one of the best quarterbacks of all time in college. He wasn't until last year. Once Joe Brady got his hands on that offense, he wasn't until then. And then you can see, actually, if you listen to Burrow talk now, he still talks about some of the things that Joe Brady taught him that he still holds on to this day and applies it now to his career with the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Brady made the leap when Matt Rule became the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. He brought Joe Brady with him as his offensive coordinator and got a lot more than people expected out of Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater down there in Carolina. That passing game actually was looking pretty good this year for a quarterback who's not known to be a terrific or elite passer in Teddy Bridgewater. His arm is very limited when it comes to arm strength or even stretching the field, but the route concepts and the scheme that they came up with, they were actually able to have a pretty successful year on the offensive side of the ball, even without their best player, Christian McCaffrey, missing damn near the whole season. Sign me up for Joe Brady all day, every day. But the name that I talked about earlier, who's a big name, he's been circulating around for a few years now, Lincoln Riley, the head coach of Oklahoma. He's been linked to numerous jobs for the past few years and has never left, but he is actually really close friends with Howie Roseman. Believe it or not,
Really?
him and Howie Roseman are actually super close. And talking to a few people a couple weeks ago, actually said it was a player's dad mentioned it to a friend of the show, Connor Miles, and he said the Eagles are going to pursue Lincoln Riley, and we're actually even talking about it to him before they fired Doug Peterson today. They've been talking about it for a few weeks now, and it's actually Lincoln Riley, like I said, he's really close friends with Howie Roseman, and also dating back to a few drafts ago when the Eagles took Dallas Goedert, the Eagles were leaning towards Orlando Brown, the offensive tackle, and Lincoln Riley Howie Roseman talked to his college coach Lincoln Riley and actually talked him out of it, which ended up resulted in the Eagles taking Dallas Goedert. It's the guy Howie Roseman trusts, and then also last year when the Eagles took Hurts, Lincoln Riley told him that he thinks he would be a solid pick to sit behind for a couple years and then develop him because he has the traits, but he is raw as a passer, and that he thinks he's a solid long-term backup or at the very least can develop into an NFL starter. And Howie Roseman trusted Lincoln Riley again and took his college quarterback Jalen Hurts. So in my opinion, like, he already has ties. The Eagles have already talked to him about it. But can you convince Lincoln Riley, who's already making millions coaching at Oklahoma, having success? He's coached 2 out of the last 3 Heisman Trophy winners, and Jalen Hurts was a finalist under Lincoln Riley in that Oklahoma offense his senior year after he transferred from Alabama. So you got a quarterback, you'd have a coach who's already familiar with Jalen Hurts, but then you have a guy who had a 1-year starter in Kyler Murray, turned him into a Heisman Trophy winner. Baker Mayfield came to Oklahoma as a walk-on. Lincoln Riley developed him into a Heisman Trophy winner, and we just saw Baker Mayfield win a playoff game last night on the road against a division rival who's one of the better defenses in the NFL. So now you have the coach who can retool Wentz, get him back to where he was, or if that doesn't work out, if maybe Wentz just forgot how to play football. I really doubt it, but maybe that is a thing and it's a possibility. You have the coach who coached your backup in college in Jalen Hurts and got the most out of him. So I think it would be a win-win. But the question is, with all this dysfunction going on with the Eagles, it would be up. Would Lincoln Riley give up his cushy job and take a risk to leap to the NFL? He's already turned down the Cowboys job last year. He's already turned down a couple other jobs in previous years. This would be a hard sell with all the dysfunction this Eagles team has, but maybe his relationship with Howie Roseman would kind of put those aside, and maybe he would be willing to make the leap. They would be my three: Dabble, Joe Brady, and obviously Lincoln Riley.
See, I like all three of them. I want to throw out another one for you, and that's this guy. I don't know how he doesn't have a job. He's been in the candidate list for the last 2 years. That's Robert Saleh, out in the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, before you get started, the 49ers had, and this is not for you, Sean, for everyone listening, the 49ers had a lot of injuries on defense this year. They did not look as good as they were billed to be. Obviously, the quarterback issue, the team faltered. It was just a dead year for them by like week 4. But Robert Saleh, he is, if you ask any 49ers player, they love him. He's beloved. He's a leader. He demands greatness from every single one of his players. And I love Doug, and I'm appreciative for the Super Bowl, just like Sean said. But we need a guy to come in here and to set the standard and to let people know, hey, I'm in charge. What I say goes. I feel like the leadership, and you could really see that with Miles Sanders' end of the year press conference, that the leadership was starting to lack towards the end.
Half the team didn't know who's going to put Sudfeld in.
Exactly. That's miscommunication. Robert Saleh's loud. He's brash. My one buddy texted me today, as soon as Doug Peterson got fired, and say I go to war with Robert Saleh just because of the kind of coach he is. And the only problem with that is he's a defensive coach, so he would have to go out and find a good offensive assistant right now who would be wanting to come up to be an offensive coordinator. Me personally, I hear a lot. I haven't looked into him much, but I hear a lot of great things about the Ravens wide receiver / assistant coach, John Harbaugh, who was with the Eagles for a little bit, is telling all the teams that this guy's going to be the next great thing. And if he's that good, and if the Eagles decide to keep Jalen Hurts, I could see that him being an offensive coordinator. But now that it seems more likely they're going to switch to Wentz, it'll be real hard for Saleh, Howie, and Jeff to kind of find a guy who's only a position coach that would be able to fix Carson Wentz. So it's a little tough when you go to the defensive guys. Like I think Matt Eberflus out in Indianapolis, I wouldn't be upset with. I also wouldn't be upset with Arthur Smith, who's the offensive coordinator for the Titans. You see how good Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, he's another name. I actually let him slip my mind when I named my candidates. That's a guy I would have no problem if Arthur Smith was the new head coach.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the complete. It's not even a 360. It's like the complete 720 that Ryan Tannehill has been able to do since he's come to Tennessee, and deserves that contract. I mean, he had it was a sad interception to Peters to ruin the season for him.
The receiver fell.
Yeah, and they couldn't get the run going. So, but other than that, Arthur Smith has been just absolute dynamite and making Mike Vrabel look, Mike Vrabel's offense. We all know Mike Vrabel's a defensive guy, former linebacker, and Arthur Smith has just taken over that offense. And Tennessee made the playoffs and looked great doing it.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. If you feel like you have a proven commodity at quarterback or something like that, then you can go with a head coach who's more of a defensive-minded coach.
Mm-hmm.
But Saleh, like I said, is an interesting guy. 49ers defense has been absolutely balling. Even this year with all the injuries, Richard Sherman wasn't there for most of the year. They lost Fred Warner. They traded Quan Alexander to the Saints. Obviously traded DeForest Buckner to the Indianapolis Colts. Thought they drafted his replacement in Javon Kinlaw, and then he got hurt. That 49ers defense exceeded expectations with the amount of injuries that they had this year. But when you don't feel like you have a quarterback who's ready to go, in my opinion, you can't hire a defensive guy, because then you're taking a chance that he brings in an offensive coordinator who can get the most out of your guy. In my opinion, that would be too big of a risk unless you have an agreement with the coordinator already when you hire Saleh.
Right.
But that's where I want to see an offensive-minded coach come in here for this Eagles team. My dream coaching staff next year would be head coach Joe Brady or Lincoln Riley, offensive coordinator Jim Caldwell, who's developed luck, been there, went to Detroit, had very good success with Matthew Stafford, and then has been out a little bit, but he's a QB guru by history. That's a
Yep.
guy I think could come in here, develop Hurts, or get Wentz back to the player that we know he can be. And then defensive coordinator, a guy I haven't heard a lot. A couple of other Eagles guys have put it out there. Terrell Austin, the secondary coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have led the NFL in turnovers, and obviously we know how good that their secondary has been. I mean, even last night they got 40 some odd points hung on them, but it was mostly on the ground with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. It wasn't really on the secondary, but and also Terrell Austin. Not only is he the defensive backs coach for the best secondary in the NFL in the Pittsburgh Steelers, who calls the most turnovers. He was also the secondary coach back in Detroit the year Darius Slay had his career high 8 interceptions. So that's some familiarity, and that's a coach I know that knows how to cause havoc and cause turnovers, and it would be a fresh relief as opposed to Jim Schwartz's bend don't break sticks defense that we had seen over the last 5 years. But Terrell Austin, I don't know if that's going to be a candidate. Nobody's really talking about it other than Eagles, like me and you. Like I know Connor Miles has hit on it. I know the guy Darius Jackson who does a podcast for Believe. He has hit on it, but it seems like nobody, like Ian Rappaport, or like nobody mainstream is even mentioning his name as a candidate. And then also Jim Caldwell is rumored to actually be taking the Texans job.
Oh,
So that's going to be interesting to see. I think that's a good hire for the Houston Texans, but he's going to have his work cut out for him. They don't have any draft picks or any cap space, but that would be my dream scenario for the Eagles. But at the end of the day, I want an offensive, especially quarterback minded head coach in here with a QB or offensive coordinator who is the same way. Because right now, Miles Sanders is what he is. He's a very good running back. You're gonna have to live with the fumbling issues unless he gets that corrected. But the most important thing right now for the Philadelphia Eagles is either getting Wentz back on track or somebody who can develop Jalen Hurts into a consistent passer. So I think they have to go offensive minded with the head coach. So I would pass on Robert Saleh at this moment.
I do. I love the Terrell Austin poll because a lot of people might not remember because it wasn't real common knowledge. But about 2 or 3 years ago, he was actually auditioning for head coaching jobs, and then he didn't get one. He went back to Detroit, and that's when everything fell apart in Detroit when he was over there, and he kind of just fell out of conversation. But there was one point in time, I believe 2 or 3 years ago, where he was interviewing for. I believe it was the year that Arizona hired Kingsbury, so that it was. He interviewed for that job and maybe Miami. He interviewed a few places, and for him to come up and be the defensive coordinator, that'd be huge. I also like, and this might be I might be influenced a little bit because of what I've been hearing, but I've been hearing a lot about this defensive line coach, our defensive line coach Matt Burke, who
Yeah,
apparently is the guy who picks the rotation for the defensive line the last 2 years. And we've seen how dominant the Eagles can be when everybody's healthy. Actually, it was either Schefter or Rappaport said they believe within 2 years, he's actually going to be a hot defensive coordinator candidate. It's a little early for him now, so I don't know if the Eagles want to if they're going to jump the gun and promote him. But it really seems like Doug's sold on getting these guys from outside, so I don't think it's going to happen. But that's just a name to keep out there.
yeah. Like you said, I mean, the only strong point of the Eagles' defense has been their
Mm-hmm.
D line. So if they're going to promote in house, that is a guy that I would take a look at. But on the offensive side of the ball, I don't think anybody that has been on this offensive side of the ball staff should be promoted in any way, shape, or form. I know people I've been adamantly against Deuce Staley as the team's offensive coordinator. I honestly don't get where the love comes from for Deuce Staley to be the offensive coordinator. And now I hear people saying, and even Jeffrey Lurie said that at his press conference, that Deuce Staley is probably going to be a candidate for this head coaching opening. I will be totally out if Deuce Staley is hired by this coaching staff. He has done nothing to earn the right to be an offensive coordinator, let alone be a head coach. I mean, he's been in charge of the running backs for the last few years now, even dating back to Chip Kelly. And He has mismanaged the rotation. And who has he developed into a better player? Miles Sanders is what he was when he came into the NFL. He's an elusive back. He's got breakaway speed, pretty good hands out of the backfield. He still can't pass protect for shit, and he still has fumbling issues. That guy is the same exact guy you drafted now in year two. Now we can go down the line. Boston Scott, unless he's playing the Giants, he stinks. He hasn't developed him at all. Corey Clement is the same player you drafted or sorry signed as an undrafted rookie. Your Super Bowl year, he stinks. Like who has Deuce Staley developed in this backfield? Wendell Smallwood gone, Donnell Pumphrey gone. Like who has emerged as like an elite back for the Eagles under Deuce Staley that already wasn't an
Right.
elite back? Like Miles Sanders is what he was at Penn State. It's
Hmm.
the same thing. He fumbles and hits home runs. Like it is what but like I said, Corey Clement and Boston Scott, neither of them have gotten better, and they've been in this offense multiple years under Deuce Staley. I get Deuce Staley is probably like a stern voice and a leader of men, like whatever you want to go to. I don't think he's coached up anybody. Like,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
I think I wouldn't want him as offensive coordinator, but I wouldn't mind him as a head coach. But I'm going to go right off to what you said about the defensive coordinators. Our head coach, he won't call the plays, and he won't call offense or defensive plays if Deuce got the job. Deuce would strictly be that John Harbaugh type leader out in Baltimore, where he's there for the players. He's a stern voice. They believe in him. A lot of the players have been around him for years. They love him. He's a very open guy. He can connect with the players. He's just an all around good dude. We're not going to say he's not. But here's the issue: who's he going to bring in to be the offensive coordinator?
Exactly. If you make Deuce Staley the head coach,
Jalen Hurts.
exactly. If you make Deuce Staley the head coach, you have to get an elite offensive coordinator. And
Like you said, you have to have it before you sign Deuce.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like if you sign an offensive mind and a guru as your head coach, then you're guaranteed to have that in the room. If you make Deuce Staley the head coach and then let him pick the OC, there's no guarantee of what you're going to have. Then if you're stuck with Deuce Staley and then like say another running eccentric offensive coordinator or just a wide receiver coach transferring to offensive coordinator, like you're not going to get what you need in somebody to develop a guy like Hurts or get Wentz back to the player we thought he was. So I think they need to just be safe with it and
Right.
hire a guy that you know you can get that out of as your head coach. Then worry about the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and down the line. But like if Joe Brady comes here or Lincoln Riley comes here, I 100% want them to be the play caller. Then I don't really care who the OC is. It's somebody that should be big in player development. I feel like and come
Right.
up with good scheme. Like I would be on board with Graham Harrell from USC, their offensive coordinator. I would be on board with him as the OC here. He actually was a hot commodity last year and wanted to actually be interviewed with the Eagles as the OC, and then Doug told him that he wouldn't have play calling duties, so he said, "I'll just stay at my cushy college job." Like I said, you're not getting a good candidate unless you give them play calling duties. But Lincoln Riley and Joe Brady are so good when it comes to scheme and play calling that I don't think an offensive coordinator is that important. I would rather have it be a guy who's more into player development in that case.
I forgot about Graham Harrell. To be honest with you, and that would probably be my one guy that if you hired a defensive coordinator, you have Graham Harrell on a plane, or like a defensive coordinator to be the head coach. You have Graham Harrell on a plane to be the offensive coordinator, like before the signing. That's like the one guy I think, because I think he has a huge future, and I think if an NFL team doesn't jump soon, and he gets a job as a head coach in college, he may never come to the NFL for years.
Right.
So he's somebody the teams are going to have to jump on quick, or if he gets a job at if he goes to Texas or one of these other colleges that are firing coaches every year, and he turns a program around, you ain't seeing him.
Exactly. That's what, and I honestly was super excited to see Harrell in this offensive staff last year, but then once they said Peterson wasn't going to give up play calling duties to whoever he hired as the OC, the Eagles missed out on every fucking candidate possible. And then he was just like, "Well, we don't need an OC." Okay. And then look where that got you, Doug.
Yeah,
10 months later, now you're looking for a job. But like I said, I don't want to pile on Doug. He brought us a Super Bowl, but at the end of the day, it was time to go. It wasn't just one bad season; it was three consecutively worse seasons than they had. But I'm excited to. It's something to be excited about, at least
Right.
for now, until they fuck up and hire somebody you don't want them to hire. Then you just got to hope for the best and hope you were wrong. But it's going to be a long process. Jeffrey Lurie already said that it's going to be. They're in no rush, which I mean doesn't make sense to me because there's so many teams that need head coaches right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars and New York Jets, and they're both better situations than what there is in Philadelphia. Whoever takes the Jaguars job is getting Trevor Lawrence, and then whoever takes the Jets job is going to have the number 2 overall pick and can either try to develop Sam Darnold or jump on Justin Fields or one of the other quarterbacks out there. Penei Sewell, in my opinion, is probably the second best overall player in this draft class. The tackle out of Oregon. So it's the Eagles isn't an appealing job if you ask me. So they're gonna have to do some convincing and probably throw some money at somebody, or hopefully Howie Roseman could leverage his relationship with Lincoln Riley and get them to leave Oklahoma. But it's gonna be interesting to see. Like I said, they said there's no rush, so we're not gonna have an answer for probably a month from now. Hopefully that's not the case because off season will be here before you know it, and then you don't want to fall behind when it comes to getting a jump on free agency or the draft. But we got to hope for the best. Me and Nick are kind. Nick's cool with Robert Saleh, pending we get an offensive coordinator who
Yep.
can develop. I'm on board with Joe Brady, Lincoln Riley, or Brian Dabble, or Arthur Smith. I want to throw that in there. That was a great point by Nick to bring up Arthur Smith. I totally forgot about him when I was making my list. That's 4 guys I would totally be on board with. Do not try to sell me on Deuce Staley. I don't care that you were in the stands at the vet yelling Deuce, Deuce. I don't care. He's done nothing as a running back coach to earn the right to be an offensive coordinator or a head coach. I'm sorry. And then don't try to sell me on Jason Garrett and then Eric Bieniemy. While I think he's a terrific candidate, would I be that upset if the Eagles hired Eric Bieniemy? Absolutely not, because I think he's probably going to be a pretty good coach. I'm just tired of that West Coast Andy Reid system. I want fresh scheme, fresh faces in here. Enough of the Andy Reid tree. That would be my wish list this offseason.
No, I agree completely. Just like you said, Eric Bieniemy is going to be a great coach no matter where he goes, and I fully believe that. He's shown that he has the talent. It's time for us to get away from this, the Andy Reid tree, like you said. It's just, and I think most Eagles fans who understand, the coaching aspect, we all know Eric's going to be a great coach. It's just,
Yeah.
I can't do it again. I physically can't. Like, we're gonna bring in Eric Bieniemy and then hire Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator when he gets fired tomorrow. Like, what? I can't do the Doug thing.
I hope not.
I can't
But
do it.
that's what I'm saying. Like people are like, oh, like Mike Kafka would be a good offensive coordinator. No, enough of the fucking Chiefs, bro. They have Pat Mahomes, they have Tyreek Hill, they have Travis Kelsey, they have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they have
And Mike
Sammy
Kafka's
Watkins.
getting
Like
promoted as soon as
exactly.
Bieniemy
But that's what I'm saying. I'm like, bro, just because they're in a good offense does not mean they're going to be a good. Like, do you think Mike Kafka developed Pat Mahomes?
No.
Pat Mahomes was great as a rookie. He came in and balled, and when he came in for Alex Smith, and then his first year as a starter, won the MVP, and then won the Super Bowl the next year. You think Mike Kafka developed him? Like, come on, man. Stop with the Chiefs. Stop. Not every Eagles coach has to come from Andy Reid. I get it. It's safe. It's a warm place. I get it. Stop.
It's time to step outside the box.
Stop with
It's time
Chiefs
to step outside
coaches.
the box.
Stop. Give me a fresh face. Take a risk. Have some balls. Not like Doug.
Oh,
But, or Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, by the way, coached like a bitch last night and cost the Steelers and cost me a parlay.
that
But
punt, that punt was disgraceful.
punt on 4th and 1, absolutely disgraceful. Disgraceful, that punt on 4th and 1. Down 12, you were down 35-7. You cut the lead to 12. Have 4th and 1 at damn near midfield. You score. The Browns are already running in their head. Oh my God, we are the Browns. Juju was right. Like we always shit the bed. And you get that first down, and then you score there, cut it to a 1-score game. The Browns would have been broke. And there's no doubt in my mind the Steelers win that game if they get points on that drive. Instead, they gave the momentum back to the Cleveland Browns. Then they score and go ahead and put the game away. Coach like a pitch. But real quick, we always end it with one question. If you are listening on YouTube or Facebook, wherever, feel free to comment. Nick, if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers, this was our question of the day. If you are the Pittsburgh Steelers, do you view, well, not even if you're the Steelers, if you, just you in general, if you view, do you view Juju as a cancer? And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, do you bring him back next year?
I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers bring him back next year. I think they're hoping for Deontay Johnson and James Washington to kind of step it up. James Washington,
Deontay Johnson is already their best receiver.
he is, and James Washington is showing that he can play that.
And Claypool had a really good rookie year.
I forgot about Claypool. So I don't think Juju comes back. Let's not forget the Steelers are also hurting really bad with cap, like the Eagles are. So, but I think
the Steelers need a quarterback.
Yeah, I think the next team Juju goes to, they need to have a strong offensive coordinator or a strong head coach because.
But you're gonna be hard pressed to find a better no bullshit guy than Mike Tomlin. I mean, he got an AB's ass for going Instagram Live one day in the locker room.
I can't call the kid a cancer, though. I think he's just immature. But if he's still doing this in 3 years, I think he's like 21, 22. If he's still doing this when he's 24, 25, we have an issue. I think for now he needs a good mentor, even if it's a coach or maybe just an older player, someone who can be like, look, you want to do that TikTok thing? That's fine. When you arrive at Heinz Field or whatever stadium he's playing at, that phone goes off. Turn that.
100%. That's what I'm saying. There's no reason to give any of your opponents extra momentum to go in and beat you, like dancing on your logo. You want to dance on your own logo at home games? Cool. Then go ahead and do it. But don't go on the road and then unless you make sure you televise it as a non-disrespectful thing. Just be like, hey, we're in Cincinnati, blah blah, and then dance on the logo or whatever, tag the Bengals social media team or something. If you want to do something like that, as if you're showing off the random stadiums that you play in, that would be something that would be cool. But don't go out there and just disrespect the team. But then he said he wasn't going to dance. But then he turns around and says, "Oh, they're the same faceless, gray named Browns that we play. The Browns is the Browns every year." And I'm just like, bruh, come on, man. What do you do? If I was if they had anybody else, I would just be your bench for the first quarter or some shit like that. That'd be given. It kind of looked like the entire Steelers team was benched for the first quarter last night, but
true.
That was awesome. I think America needs a Browns Bills AFC Championship game. That would be awesome. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'm rooting for it.
Hey, the Chiefs defense, if they falter, it could be a high-scoring game.
Oh, 100%. The Chiefs defense is not good at all.
They have Chris Jones, and that's it.
But the Browns defense is not good either. If Ben Roethlisberger had any type of an arm, they don't lose that game last night.
Right.
But regardless, question of the day, Nick answered it. He doesn't think Juju's a cancer. He just thinks he's immature, but he does think the Steelers move on. Not necessarily because of the TikTok and the comments. He thinks it just logistically they're up against the cap, and they obviously have Deontay Johnson, James Washington, and Chase Claypool. So it makes a receiver like Juju expendable, especially when you just moved him to primarily being your slot receiver.
Yep.
The comments and TikToks do not help him, though. But that's it. Daily Dose probably will not be live anymore. We'll see how that goes. We'll check back and see how you guys feel about it. But we had to go live because so many people were asking me about the Eagles situation. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to record a Daily Dose tonight. Let me just go live and you guys, I'll answer whatever. Just tune in. But we are in podcast form wherever you find podcasts. Just search the Daily Dose and you should see my ugly mug pop up in cartoon form. But shout out to Nick for producing, and then I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.